All right, Clint in the doorway too, hanging out with Jake from Chrome Ghost. Thank you very much for doing this, man. It's appreciate time. Man, you have a dog that looks almost identical to mine. That's brilliant. I have a boxer lab, and he looks very, very much like that. So, um, but anyway, thanks for doing this. I really do appreciate it. Your record's one of the more impressive things I've heard this year, so that's why I wanted to talk to you. So,
Well, thanks, man. I appreciate it.
yeah, cool.
And this
So,
dog, he knows
yeah,
when I'm on camera. He likes to show up. I don't know what his
hey,
deal is, but
he can come hang out anytime. I'm all about the dog, man. It's all good. Um, but why don't you tell me a little bit about what you do with the band and kind of a little history of the band for the folks that are brand new to Chrome Ghost?
all right. So, like you said, I'm Jake, Chrome Ghost. We being myself and Jacob, the drummer, started this band in 2015. And then our bass player Joe joined right at the end of 2017, 2018. So even though it's been 4+ years, he's still kind of the new guy to us. Um, as far as my role in the band, I'm the vocalist and I play guitar. And writing wise, the way that we describe it is like I'm like the director that goes out and shoots all the film, and then I come back, and then the other guys are like the editors. So I come in, I say, hey, this is something that I've been working on. Even if it's just 2 seconds of something, if it's sometimes there has been instances where I'm like, oh, I came up with like almost a full song. But what happens inevitably is that I bring the raw material and then I let the other guys kind of give me thumbs up and thumbs down, and their editorial role in the band is huge. So um, I was just remarking at practice the other day that like I don't even know what this music would sound like if it was just my ideas. I think it would be way different. Um, so that's kind of what I do. I'm
Cool.
I'm I'm the main composer, but kind of not.
I got you. That makes
Yeah,
sense.
yeah,
It's still a partnership, but you're the one that brings the major ideas in. Is pretty much what it is.
yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. So I've only listened to two of your records, the Diving Bell and the brand new Hounds of Falling Ash.
Hmm.
So we're going to talk about those two kind of in general. So I kind of wanted to. So you have an interesting dichotomy in this band, and this is kind of why I wanted to talk to you. It's kind of like there's a mixture of this kind of fragile, delicate sound, and then these suffocating, kind of crushy, sludging tones. So I kind of wanted to ask, was that how you wanted the band to be all along, or was it something that grew into that? Because between the two records I've heard, there's similarities, but there's differences. I would say the new record is more dynamic, where the previous record is kind of, I think you're feeling your way out to what you want to be with this new record right now. But kind of talk to me about how you mix the fragile with those kind of sludgy tones.
Well, that's all intentional for sure, and it has been since like day one. We have a record that came out in 2016 that's called Choir of the Low Spirits, and that one is like almost sounds like a different band, but you
Mhm.
can still hear what what the little seed of what we wanted to do was. Um, and on the first record there's like the loud quiet loud thing, but it's not nearly as intense as it became on the first ep that we did, which is called Reflection Pool. And so we can totally go chronologically throughout all the releases that we've done, 3 records and 2 eps, and you can see that like the spectrum of the light stuff to the heavy stuff is getting wider and wider and
Mhm.
wider. And I think what you're hearing on the Diving Bell versus House of Falling Ash, which is the brand new one, is that the Diving Bell is very much the dynamics are on and off.
Mhm.
It's either like crazy, super heavy, or it's not.
Mhm.
And see, all the animals know that I'm doing something. Um, and the thing is, we made a conscious decision with House of Falling Ash to not just have the on and the off, but to have some type of middle ground too. to kind of not become predictable to ourselves. Like, oh, of course, here we go. Here's the big loud part. We're gonna stop, and then it's gonna come back loud. Like, we wanted to make the quiet parts as quiet as we could. We wanted to make the loud parts as loud as we could, but then we also wanted to have some kind of middle range so that we're not, um, I don't know, we're just not using the same tools all the time because
Gotcha.
we're making the music for ourselves with the hope that other people will dig it. And so far, that relationship has been pretty parallel. Like, the more we like something, the more other people seem to like it. Um,
Mm.
but it's not like, oh, I don't want to hurt the audience's feelings by just making it like, I no, it's fine. They're either gonna like it or they're not. But we
Right.
have to like it because we're gonna be playing this stuff over and over for months to years on end. I mean, so that you are correct in that there is a noticeable difference in not only like the textures, the things that we're choosing to kind of layer, but also the intention behind kind of the varying levels of intensity to kind of get whatever point we're trying to make across. So
Cool.
I'm cool. I'm glad that you noticed that between the two records because I definitely think that that is a part of it.
Oh, it's there. It's clearly there. Like, and it's really good because you kind of grow as you listen. Because I listened in reverse, which is kind of, I
Mm.
think, a more interesting way. Is um, there's parts of the Diving Bell that I think are really awesome, and then there's parts of House of Falling Ash that I listen to, and I'm like, oh, I can see where that came from off of the last record. So very cool. Um, so I'm gonna throw out some classifications for your band. I hate using that goddamn term. And
Go ahead. Give me what you got. Let me
yeah.
hear it.
So I'm gonna say that the Diving Bell more kind of goes that post metal kind of drony vibe in my like if I'm gonna use terms for like there's so much more, but that's kind of the two things I hear. Where House of Falling Ash, I'm gonna it's proggier. It's also got a lot more shoegaze elements, and I know that's probably not on purpose, and it might be, but it might just be my ear hearing it. But I hear like a lot of My Bloody Valentine kind of guitar tones going on this one, where I didn't hear it as much, and it kind of, I guess, diverges where it does that kind of shoegazy, proggy metal, and then it goes into brutal, brutal, almost Cult of Luna kind of sludge. Uh, so I kind of wanted to ask you from the Diving Bell to House of Falling Ash. Did you add those kind of textures and layers because those were new things you were hearing, or is it stuff that you always wanted to add and it just was the right time to do
Um, it's a kind of a mix of everything because there's some stuff that we did on Diving Bell that was like direct, like My Bloody Valentine
it?
and like a Boris type of shoegazy thing. In the song Halo, that really fast tremolo picking part is totally like um, meant to be as like washed out, like amorphous big cloud of guitar. And then in the song The Diving Bell, there's a really long, um, quiet, like shoegazy part towards the end that was me kind of channeling that My Bloody Valentine by way of Boris because Boris has done at least one really good My Bloody Valentine cover. Um, but then on the new record, it was like, okay, how can we make this more an internal part of the song? And you can hear it in almost every track.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, I would probably say every track. There's like a My Bloody Valentine kind of vibe.
Mm-hmm.
Or weirdly, like I'm not like a huge Deftones fan. Like I respect them a lot. I'm from
Yeah,
Sacramento, so it's like, you know, one of my friends is now playing with them. Like I like what they do. It's just not like it never hit me, and that's
sure.
not their fault, not my fault. But there was the part of Rose in Bloom, the first song, where it was composed because I was sitting there goofing around at practice, and then started playing. I was like, "Hey, check it out! I'm in Deftones," and started playing some like riff. And put this reverse delay on it, and then I was like, "Oh, that's actually kind of nice. Like that sounds cool," and that ended up becoming a big part of the song. And then if you listen to the next track, The Furnace, the guitar solo is like really blurry.
Mm-hmm.
I'm having like a reverse delay going into a fuzz pedal into reverb pedal to make this kind of crazy chain of like washy noise. And then you get into Where Black Dogs Dream, and the whole kind of last half of that song is like a Neil Young chord progression or something, but with this weird, like woozy texture.
Yeah.
And then even on the last song, House of Falling Ash, there's every time the chorus plays in the song, the chorus is broken up into two halves. And as each half goes on in the song, the guitars get blurrier and blurrier to where at the end, you can even hear the strumming of the guitar. It's just this big kind of throbbing thing.
Yeah.
So it wasn't necessarily like compositional things that we stole from bands like that. It's more the technique and implementing that technique to kind of make like a new,
Yeah.
Take something you've already heard and then kind of explode it in a way. And it's like, this is really corny, but there's some like, those painters on like America's Got Talent where they're like,
Yeah.
doing crazy shit. And at the end, they turn it upside down. This is kind of the opposite of that. We're showing you what the part is, and then we flip it upside down and make it all crazy. And in your mind, some part of you is supposed to go, wow, this is still the same piece of music, but it's got a new face, basically.
Cool. No, that's awesome.
And that's something that we want to keep doing on like the next record, is see how far we can push those kind of influences and still make it super heavy and engaging.
Cool. Very cool. So that kind of brings me on. So there's a particular song on House of Falling Ash that I want to talk about because it's my favorite track, and it's Where Black Dogs Dream. And here's the reason why. And it's not probably because of what everybody else likes, because much like talking to you right now, you and I have a very broad paintbrush on the musical stylings that we like. We don't, it doesn't have to be metal. It doesn't have to be pop. It doesn't have to be punk.
Yeah.
It can mix everything. But particularly that track touches me in a very amazing way right around the 6:30 mark. And I want to talk about it because it gives me this Radiohead and this band called Low. I'm sure you know who they are.
Yeah.
But you kind of sound like the male vocals from Low on that track. And the guitar tones have this very early Radiohead vibe to me. And I just kind of wanted to talk about was when you were creating that kind of texture and that sound for the second half of that song, did you want it to be that emotional, that much tension going on, but being almost delicate in the way it was created?
Yeah, that's an interesting track because I have to give a lot of credit to my friend Peter, who records under the name Isolde. He did that whole ambient section in the middle, like the beautiful, like singing guitars and the crackling and all that. And the last half of Where Black Dogs Dream came from an improvised kind of jam session that we did when we were actually doing demos for the Diving Bell back in 2018. So we had this chord progression that ended up being in the song, and I just kept hammering away at it for like over 2 years because I just kept thinking there's something here. I don't know what it is. I don't know what I'm singing over it. I don't know what anybody else is doing, but something about it. And it's like a pretty simple chord progression. And I think Peter even said himself that it was like he wanted to do some kind of Neil Young-y type of thing. And then as we kept developing it, I mean, every song went through radical changes before we recorded, but that one, the first half of the song had changed, I think, 3 or 4 times. And then we kind of just, at the last minute, maybe like a month and a half before we were supposed to record, we finally nailed in the last thing and figured it out, because I just knew that the second half of the song was, I don't know, and especially once I got the lyrics together and fit it into the theme of the album, I was like, okay, this is important. It has to be on here. And I just wanted it to sound like wistful and, you're laying in a grassy meadow at night. Like, it reminded me of some camping trips that I've taken with my friends where we're literally just like looking at a telescope at the stars, and it's so dark and the moon is so bright that you can see like the light from the telescope hitting the grass or whatever when people aren't using it. And that's kind of what I was thinking about. And themes of like the wind carrying sound through the whatever, blah blah blah, all this poetic crap, but
Sure.
it all boiled down to just wanting to kind of capture this feeling of kind of serenity, and at the same time it's like a wistful, melancholic type of thing. Kind of like when you're experiencing something and you're like, wow, I know that this is going to be over soon.
Mm-hmm.
And you kind of don't care, but you're enjoying the moment with the knowledge that the moment is over, basically, in your head. That's the kind of thing that I wanted to convey with that. And yeah, that song, I think more than any of the other songs in the record, took the most hammering and shaping to kind of make it finally fit. And yeah, it's kind of funny to, like, when I listen to it now, I'm like, yeah, this sounds like it was planned out, but it came together at the last minute, basically.
Cool. So I guess I want to talk about the song lengths too, because if you're not a fan of this style of music, 10, 12-minute songs can be kind of intense for the casual listener. When you create albums, are you creating albums or are you creating one song vignettes so people can listen to this one track? Because the reason why I'm asking is I've listened to both the records probably a dozen times now, all the way through. And I feel like if you take one of the songs out, you're missing a great piece of the whole picture.
Yeah, I would hope so. That's supposed to be what it's like. And I give a lot of credit to Jacob, our drummer, because he's like a freak when it comes to the track listing. Like, none of our releases was the track listing my final idea. I'll be like, oh, I think this should go here. And he's like, no. It goes this one, this one, this one, this one, this one. And he's also that way with the song structures as well. We definitely, if we're putting out an album, the album is exactly what it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be listened to from front to back. I never, ever listen to music on shuffle. I think it's crazy. I always, for the most part, start a record from song one. Song one has to be like, not the best song on the album, but it has to be the most perfect song to start it with. And I'm a little resentful of records that have, like, this is probably controversial, but like intros and stuff, like a minute-long intro at the beginning. I don't like that at all. Like, just make it part of the song. Don't make it skippable. If it's good, you shouldn't be able to skip it, basically. Right. Like on Netflix, they can give you the option to skip the theme song, which is kind of fucked up. But then there are shows that have annoying theme songs. And so it's like, well, maybe they should have just made the theme song better. I wouldn't even want to skip it in the first place.
Right.
And as far as the song length goes, none of it is really planned out. Like, I never go like, this is going to be a 14-minute long song because that's what I want. We just write the song until it sounds like it's done. And sometimes that means a song is 6 to 8 minutes, and sometimes that means a song is like 9 to 14. I think Rose in Bloom is the longest track that we've released so far. The only thing, I mean, the song, The Diving Bell, might also be about 13 to 14 minutes long. And it's like, my hope is that it flies by, that there's so much happening, there's so much going on. You get this kind of recursive feeling of, I've heard this before and now I'm hearing it again in a new context, that it doesn't feel like, 14 minutes. We've played half-hour sets where we played 2 songs and we were done. And I just feel like there's enough going on that you're not going to get bored. You should never feel bored. If something's long and slow and repetitive in a Chrome Ghost song, hopefully the point is that you're supposed to feel like meditative, or you're supposed to dig a little deeper into what's going on. But that being said, I do like kind of boring music. I like, bands like Earth, or artists like William Basinski or Steve Reich or David Hikes, like people that make really long form, slow moving experimental music. Like, I listen to the most boring shit. Like, that is
not boring. Don't say that. Yeah.
Let's not kid ourselves. If I told my dad to listen to Solar Winds by David Hikes, which is just people going, oh, for like an hour. He would be like, turn this shit off. I
I
can't
know.
stand it. Um, but I want to take things like that they're actually like really extreme. Like a William Basinski record, if you listen to the Disintegration Loops or Water music, that's extreme music. Water music is like one texture for like an hour. It's
I know.
just like listening. It's crazy. So I like my idea is to take things like that and then take bands like Boris or Melvins or even heavier stuff like Godflesh and things like
Mhm.
that. And how can I take all these things and put them into a package that people who don't even know they like that stuff will like?
Cool.
So it's like, fusion, like how jazz fusion was like Mahavishnu Orchestra. They were like, how
Yeah.
can we take jazz and world music and make it rock music so that rock fans will like it? I want to do that with extreme, with like bands like Sumac and stuff. How can I make Sumac into a pop song? How
Right.
can I take Sumac and put it with My Bloody Valentine and make it something that, my mom would be like, oh, that's a nice song.
Cool.
So all of that stuff goes into writing the songs, and then the length is just a byproduct of whatever we were feeling. Like it's not never pre-planned. This is gonna be the epic, huge, long song. Like I actually forgot how long some of the stuff is on the new record until I was like, fuck, it can't even fit on a vinyl record. Like
Right.
so yeah, it's not a stunt. And we're not like sitting around stoned going like, we gotta play this fucking riff like 80 times. And I like Electric Wizard, things like that, but I can't play it because it just gets, unless it's like a really it's a statement, like the early Earth records, they're super repetitive with the
Yeah.
drum machine. That's a statement to me. The Electric Wizard stuff is like, I like it. It feels less like a statement and more like we're just grooving.
Cool. No, that's great. And I was just gonna say that you and I must be in a different world than most, because like one of my favorite events ever is I went to see Robert Rich for one of his sleep events. And it's an 8 hour long event where he just plays music while everybody gets a sleeping bag and goes to sleep overnight.
That's
And,
cool.
and yeah, it was amazing. So like I'm totally with you on those kind of tracks. But yeah, so there's two bands in particular. One of them you just mentioned that I feel like are kinship to Chrome Ghost. One of them is very much Earth, just because I feel like everything that duo does, you kind of modify, alter, make it your own, which is a great kind of dichotomy. The other one is Rosetta. I don't know if you know who they are or not. Okay, so
No.
Rosetta is a band. They're kind of a prog doom band, but the vocalist does something very similar that you do. So if you can pick up some Rosetta records, you might really dig it, and it might be an influence in the future for you. He does the very beautiful kind of shoegazing vocals with those real gutturals as well too.
Huh.
And they did it 10 years ago. I don't even know if they're a band anymore, because the last time I actually heard a record was around 2017 from them, but they did 5 really cool records. So like I said, I kind of wanted to ask, like, vocally wise, not guitar wise, but is it hard to be able to put the puzzle together and say, okay, this is where the melancholy vocals are going to be, this is where the brutality is going to be, this is kind of where the mixture of both leans into it?
Um, I don't know if I don't know how much thought I put into it, but I obviously put some amount of thought into it. I just can't recall at this moment. Like,
Okay.
I'm thinking, so the song "House of Falling Ash," the title track on the new one, I that whole thing came from like how cool, how crazy would it be to just start a song with just like screaming
Yeah.
and then build it up piece by piece. Um, Otherwise, I think you'll notice there's maybe not a lot less, but it seems like there's less harsh vocals on the new record.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just because I'm only going to put it in when it sounds right. Like, if it seems like, okay, the intensity needs to go up in the song, then that's where it needs to go. Um, and it's not much more intellectual than that. It's just kind of like, okay, this part doesn't need more. melodic singing, like how can we break this up? How can we introduce a new texture? Or how can we really nail home like this is a big emotional moment? Or also the words matter a lot. Like if you're screaming, I feel like what you're saying has to fit. I'm never gonna do harsh vocals and be like, "Ooh, baby, baby, I love you," you know. But at the same time, maybe that's something that's going to happen in the future is like kind of switching things around. Maybe the harsh vocals are going to be over the quiet, beautiful part. And
Sure.
I don't know. I don't, it just seems to come naturally. Like whatever the part, whatever it seems like will finish that part is what's going to end up happening. So if it sounds like, okay, this needs some really gnarly shit over it, then so be it. But it's not more calculated than that.
Cool. Yeah, because I was going to say that I feel like Earth did the same thing. Early on, they were this really heavy doomed force. And now, like, I've seen Earth probably 3 times in the last 4 years. And it's, I guess the best way to explain it, it's almost like a spaghetti Western now, like going to see
totally.
them. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like I keep waiting for Clint Eastwood to hit the stage because like that's kind of what Earth reminds me of now, and it's a beautiful thing because I don't know if I love that more or the old more, but it's great that they still mix the two together, and you do that almost on every song. You mix two drastically different genres and make it work. So I just want to say thank you for that. So.
Well, and for anyone who isn't that familiar with Earth or is only familiar with the new stuff or only familiar with the old stuff, the record you have to listen to is Hibernaculum.
Right.
Because they're doing all their old stuff, but in the new style. And I think that's their best record because it's like I said with Earth earlier, it's a statement. They're like, hey, I know you like all the old shit, but sorry, here's the old shit, and we're going to play it like this now. And they're just a great band. I saw them at the Fillmore in San Francisco, and they had a second guitar player, and he's got I don't know what it's called, like a Moog Taurus or something. It's like a bass synth, and every time he would hit the bass synth pedal, there was like dust coming off the ceiling because it was so much bass, and I was like, holy shit, this is insane. And it's that kind of pure sine wave bass where it's just these super low frequencies. It was like an EDM show or something. And that was really, really cool. Like, they're one of those bands that when I saw them, some bands are just life affirming. They make you want to go listen to music. They make you want to go play music. They make every time I see something like that, I have like a big shit-eating grin on my face. And so, I'll go see like some really, really intense band or something, and I'm just the guy in the corner smiling like, oh, wow. Probably ruining the pictures or something like that. But that's what I want out of a show is I need to get what I can't get off the record. And Earth definitely did that. I didn't know that there was going to be seismic, like earthquake bass with the plaster from the ceiling at the Fillmore raining down on people. So
very cool.
They're definitely a big influence, not just sonically, but kind of philosophically in terms of how they approach making the music. I appreciate a lot.
Cool. So I've been kind of following reviews and people talking about your band, and a term keeps popping up, and I just want to get your feedback from it because I don't know what the hell it actually means. So maybe you and I together can kind of do this.
Sure.
Yeah, I'm still here. You still here?
Oh man,
you still here? Did I lose you?
Hey, you're coming back, I think.
All right, hold on. Let's see. Are you back now?
Oh shit.
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. So, again, what? Hey, things happen.
Yeah, you're cutting in and out. I don't.
Hold on one second. Let me see what we can do. Yeah, you're dropping out entirely on me now.
I can hear you really well now.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, I can hear you as well. We good to continue?
Ah, I see. Let me see real quick.
Yeah.
Let me see. I'm gonna go off my Wi-Fi real quick.
Okay.
Maybe that'll help.
Yeah, we'll check it.
Seems cool. Although who
All
knows?
right, we good now? All right,
Yeah,
good,
I think
good.
we're good. All right. So you were
Awesome.
saying
So I
something.
was
You were reading reviews.
Yeah, and the term post doom keeps coming up for you. Like, what is your thoughts on that? Do you even think that that's an actual term for you, or what?
I mean, I understand why people are saying that. We're taking elements from Doom and we're recontextualizing them. Um, I think at a certain point, it starts to get a little silly. I think we're
Yeah.
already in this in a silly thing. It's Doom, gaze, blackened sludge, post. Yeah, I get it. But my thing is, those terms are only as useful in as so far as they help people understand what they're about to listen to. But I don't know if anyone who sees post Doom is going to be see that. I even think like post metal and post rock. Like I still think those terms are kind of like turn people off a little bit because they're like, what the fuck does that even mean? I don't know. Are we postmodern? Are we? I understand and I appreciate people's willingness to dutifully categorize art as well as they can because it is kind of for archival purposes. It's important to understand kind of movements. Um, I don't know if like in the 20s and 30s people were like, why is this called Dada art? Like I'm not making Dada art. I'm doing this. Like fuck you. Or I'm not making surreal art. I'm doing that. Maybe maybe Man Ray and dudes like that were like, I don't make that. So I'm not going to pretend like me thinking that the genre tags are a little goofy is a unique original thought. But I understand the term post doom. I think we probably are post doom. Um, but I think either in the intention to antagonize people or not, like it is kind of a hard to define thing that's going on.
Cool. No, I appreciate that. So the next thing I kind of want to ask a little bit is studio versus live. How would you say it's different for the fan?
Oh, it's way different. Um, the number one thing you'll notice is that there's only me singing, so there's no vocal harmonies. We did do a show recently where Patrick Hills, who records all of our records and plays on them, did a show with us. We did our record release a couple weeks ago, and he did second guitar and vocal harmonies, and it was so much fun. I was like, oh
Mm.
shit, I haven't sang with somebody on stage in years. So that's obviously the first thing that you'll notice. We can't replicate that, but we make up for it by being extremely loud against your will. Like if you're listening to the record, there's a little volume knob you can turn up and down. You can't do that if you come to the show. It's just going to be super loud. Um, and I have done things to kind of make it more of an album like or recording like experience where like I'm playing through like multiple guitar amps, so it kind of gets a different spread and sounds a little more fleshed out because I mean if you're listening to our records you're listening to like when the heavy part comes in it's at least three guitars at once,
Mm-hmm.
so I don't want to sound wimpy compared to the recordings, and if we can't have like the really big beautiful vocal harmonies, then what I'll try to do live is to accentuate the fact that yes there is only one vocalist and it's me, and try to kind of crank up the feeling of intimacy of being in the moment, because we can shrink it down so much. I mean, more than on the record, we can make the dynamics really crazy live. And then, the stretching of the tempo, little surprises like,
Mm-hmm.
my favorite thing live, I almost get too distracted with it sometimes, is like I know when a moment of guitar feedback is coming up and I'm ready, I'm like, okay, am I gonna nail it? And then, whenever it happens, that's the most intense listening I do throughout the entire set, is like the feedback. I'm like, it's gotta be the perfect feedback, which is so stupid, but when you play stuff a million times, you have to look for like new little novel experiences, and that's one of them.
Very
But
cool.
in general, I think if you're listening to our record and then going to the show, the difference is going to be that kind of feeling of that it is all happening in the room right now, and then I'll try to get the emotive quotient, or not quotient, the emotive quality as cranked up as I can, because that's the whole point of going out, is so you're going to look at another human being and be in the same room as them. So try to turn that up, not be a cool guy on stage and stoic, and um, you know, like if you come see us live, like we're smiling and a lot of eye contact and
Hmm.
sometimes laughing and shit. Like it's not, I'm up there to be like, what's up, guys? You guys fucking ready to mosh? Like, let's rock.
That's cool.
Um, so yeah, it's not. I'm trying to reduce the artifice a little bit by just we're all just up there, kind of just being as human as we can in the moment, which is hard. But what's the point of doing stuff if it's not going to be hard?
Right. No, I get it. So then there's a couple more questions I'm going to ask, then we'll wrap this up.
Uh-huh.
Next thing I kind of want to ask is, so you were on Transylvanian Records for
Mm-hmm.
the Diving Bell, but
Mm-hmm.
this time it's Seeing Red only. Is there a
Yeah.
reason you're not working with them again? Because they seem like a really interesting label that really is supportive for their band. So I was just kind of wondering, what was the move to directly the one label only?
Yeah, it's nothing interesting. It's just it was a logistical thing. We love Jimmy from Transylvanian. He's been a huge supporter since like day one. The first show that we ever played, actually, his band Swamp Witch played,
Hmm.
and so we made some really good connections like really early on in the band. As early on as we could. It was just a logistical thing in terms of him doing tapes and then doing a simultaneous release across two labels on two different formats. Um, I just don't think that there was like time in the day to make that happen. But yeah, we have the. I would love to work with him again, and he knows that. And I'm also trying to get Isolde to do an ambient album for Transylvanian, because Jimmy really loves ambient music, and you can hear that with a couple releases that came out in like the last 2 years
Hmm.
of getting into more kind of experimental region. But yeah, we love Transylvanian, and got nothing bad to say about the guy. He's great. It was just life is boring and stupid sometimes, and so that's one of the boring and stupid things that happens.
Gotcha. No, that's completely fair. Um, if someone was about to hear Chrome Ghost for the very, very first time, how would you explain the band to them?
Mm. It's funny because almost every review that we get has a comparison to Alice in Chains. I'm not even a big Alice in Chains guy. Like, there's probably like six of their songs that I know well and that I really like. And then there's other stuff that I'm familiar with, and I'm like, oh, this is just, it's cool. They're not a bad band at all. They're a great band. It's just the same thing that I was describing earlier, where like not all of it just hits that
Mhm.
button in my brain. But I always tell people it's like Alice in Chains, but really loud and really slow and really long, you know.
Gotcha.
Because when you say Alice in Chains, people immediately have a sound in their head that's this kind of like parallel fifth vocal harmony
Hmm.
thing. Um, and, that's, I'll never be like, oh, why do people keep saying that we sound like Alice in Chains? Like, I'm not dumb. I know why they say that. Um, it's just kind of funny that none of us in the band are like really big into it, but there's also influences that you just can't escape no matter what. It's just kind of in your DNA. So I always tell people, yeah, it's like Like if I work at a bar, if somebody goes, "Oh, you're in a band, like what does it sound like?" I'm like, "Oh, it's like, Alice in Chains and Black Sabbath, but long and slow and,
Nice.
I've also weirdly the weirdest thing to me, I'm starting to kind of understand it now, but I've had a ton of people over the years compare us to Type O Negative. And I don't like I kind of get it a little bit, but at the same time I'm like, what? That guy, he's like a sounds like Dracula when he's singing. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? But I've been starting to
It's the
understand it a
emotion.
little bit.
It's the emotional thing. That's all it is, I think. Because you create the
Probably.
same kind of emotion that Typo does. That's what it is.
I also listened to that song "Love You to Death" the other day because
Mhm.
I listened to the Paul Bearer cover because I was just listening to Paul Bearer. We're playing a show with them coming up in a few weeks, and so I was like, I'll just check them out again. Haven't listened in a while, and then I listened to the Typo version of the original of "Love You to Death," and I was like, holy shit, they're directly cribbing Pink Floyd stuff.
Yeah.
Like there's lyrics that directly reference "Comfortably Numb." There's vocal parts that are kind of a "Comfortably Numb" thing, and then there's a big focal point of a guitar piece that is like "Shine On You Crazy Diamond"
Yeah.
in that song. And I was like, oh shit, okay, so all those elements working together with the kind of gothic thing and the heavy distorted stuff. I was like, okay, I kind of understand that now. But for a long time I was like, what's the horny guy, the horny vampire guy, like that's what I sound like to you? Like, all right, try not
And,
try
and
not to yuck other people's yum, but damn.
that's funny you say that because he is such an intellectual guy. Like I grew up around him and with him, so like
Mm.
I know him. All right. So like I said, he's huge in the '60s psychedelic and folk rock. So that's kind of like funny that you say that because he fought for 10 years to do a Neil Young cover, that Cinnamon Girl cover. So like he
Oh wow.
literally, yeah, he fought to do that. So like I said, like it's funny that you say that because you hear things that he definitely wants in his music. So that's very cool. So
Well, in Typo, I mean, they made a big move with covering Seals and Croft, "Summer
mhm.
Breeze." Excellent song, and I'm sure there are a lot of people in Typo Negative shirts going like, "What the fuck,
Yep.
yacht rock? What fuck this shit? What the hell?" And I
No,
respect that for sure.
very
So yeah,
cool.
Peter Steele, interesting guy.
Yeah. So I'm going to give you the last kind of couple of minutes to kind of talk about what you're up to, what you're doing, what the future holds for Chrome Ghost, and then we'll wrap it up from there.
Yeah, we are starting to write new music. There's some ideas that have been floating around for a while that we're just kind of now shaping. I always forget like how painful it is every time we start over. Um, yeah, I don't know. It's like I think I just put it out of my mind. Like, you go to the dentist and you get something done and you're like, wow, I feel so much better now. And then you have to go again and you're like, fuck, I forgot how good it feels to write something and to finish it. Always overshadows how painful it is to start. And so now we're back at the beginning, um, and just trying to think about what we want to do for the next record and what kind of like I've been listening to this Irish band called Lankum, Lankum, and then making like traditional Irish folk music, but there's an emphasis on kind of like weird droning stuff and also some dissonant stuff. No drums, it's just like violins and mandolins and guitars and bass and really really crazy vocals. And that's what I've been kind of focusing on is like how can I fit like with some older stuff, like on the Diving Bell, I was listening to a lot of John Fahey, like solo acoustic guitar
Mhm.
music. And so I was focused a lot on the guitar. And now, weirdly, we all just agreed in the band, like, yeah, the next record should be more about like the vocals. And so I've been listening to, yeah, that band Lancome doing like traditional Irish folk music, but with these crazy three-part harmonies and really beautiful delivery. And yeah, just wondering how I'm gonna start fitting all this stuff together, and then once it gets kind of put through the machine, like where it's gonna go from there. But still, like I've been listening to a lot of Floor,
Okay.
You're in Florida, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so then you know all about it.
All about it. Yeah. Cavity, Floor, that whole scene. I got you, man.
Yeah. So I've been listening to that first Floor record a lot, um, and just kind of thinking like, what do I really love about this, and what parts of the songs are really grabbing me, and then just kind of thinking about how can we apply that in our own way, because I can point out every single moment on the new record where it's like, this is Fleetwood Mac, this is Boris, this is King Crimson, this is Deftones, this is Baroness. Like I can Mastodon, I can point out every single piece, but the fun is not that we stole it. The fun is that we stole it and then mashed it all together and made it into something different that might still be recognizable, but like we totally got called out for doing like a Discipline era King Crimson thing, but I was stoked. I was like, holy shit, somebody understood what was happening. But yeah, the fun is going to be like, how can we take like world music, folk music. I'm big into like Southeast Asian stuff too, and Middle Eastern music and microtonal things. And now I'm into watching all these crazy Instagram videos of people playing like fretless guitar.
Mm.
So the fun is going to be like, how do we make these pieces? It's like taking different pieces from board games and making your own new game with it. Other than that, we had to take a little break from booking shows where, having like medical problems in the band that we didn't know what the resolution was going to be. Like, are some of us going to need surgery and then we're going to be out for months, but luckily everyone's doing kind of okay. And
Good.
so we have nothing booked for 2023, but come what may, I would love to go out on the road and do some shit, see some new people, because the people in Sacramento have been so supportive of us. It's really nice to see, like, wow, there's like a good chunk of people that come out and see us no matter what we do. But at the same time, we can't just keep playing to them over and over again. I mean, it's you just can't. I mean, people, as much, even if you're their favorite band, they're not going to go see you every time if you play in town like 5 times a year. So we just need to get out and go see some new people and play with some new bands, and that's what we're looking forward to as well.
Cool. Well, Jake, thank you so very much for doing this. I really appreciate it. Love the new record. Hope you get to come to Florida and we get to hang out, and I get to watch a show with you. So.
Yeah, that'd be badass, dude. Thank you. Great interview, by the way. I really appreciate thoughtful questions.
Hey, not a problem, man. And again, Clint from the Doorway too, with Jake from Chrome Ghost. Until next time, man, you have a good weekend, and thank you very much.
Later, dude. Thank you.